Good evening and welcome, everybody. We are here for October 2024 ILEATA Live. This year is just flying by. We were supposed to have Todd Fletcher with us, but he found a horse on the way home and stopped to buy a horse. So we had to substitute him with another Texan cowboy, Billy Etheridge. Joe Willis is here, and our special guest, Karen Saltman. So we're going to jump right into this. And for those that don't know who Karen is, those one or two people out there, Karen, tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do, and why you're here.
Hello, Brian, Joe, and Billy, and everybody else. Hello. So my name is Karen Solomon. I am. Let's see. I've been married to a law enforcement officer for 23 years, and I don't usually lead with that, but I don't know why I am today, because I guess I'm talking to ILEATA. That's why. And I run an organization called H.E.L.P. We started in 2016 as Blue H.E.L.P. H.E.L.P is an acronym for Honor, Educate, Lead, and Prevent. And what we started as an organization to raise awareness for law enforcement suicide. We really wanted people to start focusing on the true issues around law enforcement suicide, whether or not the information we were getting was anecdotal or it was real. So we started tracking law enforcement suicides year over year. We have a live tracker on our website. And as suicides occur, they show up on our page. They can be parsed by different kinds of data. We collect about 50 data points as well as narratives from the families. A couple of years ago, people started saying, well, what about fire? What about EMS? So now we transitioned into an organization called H.E.L.P. So we support all first responders, raise awareness for all first responder suicides, support families in the aftermath, track the suicides, provide data to everybody from kids doing college dissertations all the way up to the federal government. And last month, we opened a park in Texas with a memorial for first responders and military veterans lost to suicide, and their names can be etched on that wall in Texas. So that's the short story of who I am and what we do.
Well, thank you for that awesome introduction, and thank you for doing what you're doing for all the first responders and military as well when it comes to these tragic events. Before we jump into our chat with Karen, we have a video that we're going to play that goes a little more in depth of what First Help is. So hang on.
Impacts Americans at an incredible rate. It's one of the leading causes of death among all Americans each year. And all first responders are struggling with the stigma of asking for help, and they're struggling with the resources to be able to confront mental health issues.
We've been collecting data for going on 6 years now. We want to be able to track that information and say, hey, look, this is a problem that we need to address.
So we started this organization in 2016 because we wanted to raise awareness about law enforcement suicide, because we didn't feel like enough was being done for first responders or to understand the scope of the problem.
First Help's mission is in our name: honor, educate, lead, and prevent. We honor those lost to suicide and the families they've left behind and the agencies that they've left behind, continuing to care for them and to not let their memories die and not let their death be in vain. We also educate the public, elected officials and others, on the statistics, the numbers, the challenges that first responders are facing. In the leadership space, we're directly involved in so many conversations at the national level to get policies changed, to influence public opinion.
Organization has grown tremendously over the past few years because of the love and support of the people that have lost first responders to suicide and the first responders themselves.
Prevention. At the end of the day, everyone who's lost someone to suicide knows they can't go back and undo that. And without fail, they continue to ask us to prevent the next. And we'll continue to work very hard to do that.
So everything that we do now is geared toward prevention so that we don't have to increase the number of families we support.
First Help is love. A group of people with this loss, we have a tendency to not feel loved.
And when we see these families come together and we put faces to the impact of the mental health problem in the first responder professions, it changes things.
I
will listen.
I will listen.
I will listen. What a powerful statement. That's a great hashtag on social media as well. I will listen. Can you tell us a little bit how that came about? I will listen.
I think it was Joe actually. I'm not. I think it was a Joe thing. So what I Will Listen represents is the statement that we want to make to first responders, to our families, to our friends. That I will listen. If you want to talk about mental health, I will listen. There's no shame, no stigma, and that's really aligns with our mission and our goals since day one. Because if you followed us at all, in January 2016, we started this. We were the only organization in the country who was tracking lives, supporting the families in the aftermath. And what we decided to do was we put their names and faces on paper. We put them on our website. We put them out publicly through social media. And we wanted people to see the families, and the families wanted people to see them so they could understand that they wished that they had more opportunity to hear what was being said, or to hear maybe the messages that they will unconsciously be given by their first responder. Because when you lose somebody to suicide, there's a lot of, hindsight. So I Will Listen, it became representative, not just our families and us, but a society of a whole, that if you want to talk about what's going on with you, we'll listen, that you are also a human being in addition to a first responder. So that became the hashtag. And from that hashtag, we did some of our training stemmed from it. We did some social media graphics, which were incredible. People would send us their photo. We'd put it in a poster for them that said, I will listen, and then they'd share it. We were featured on the news a number of times. We had police and fire departments around the country creating I Will Listen videos. And we actually won an award. It was an award for a viral campaign that gave a message. And geez, I should be better, but I'm not big on awards. But it was actually like a Webby award. It was the same organization that gives out the Webby awards. It was the very first year they started giving out. Say again?
The Anthem Award.
The Anthem Award. Thank you. You're good at paying attention to detail. So the Anthem Award, it's given out by the same organization that gives out the Webby Awards, and they gave them out to nonprofits. And we were one of the first nonprofits chosen for that award. And that was really cool. And we did it in conjunction with our partners over at LifeView Video, because they do a lot of stuff with us and do a lot of our graphics. So I Will Listen really has become the hashtag for our organization. And coincidentally, I didn't tell you guys this. I haven't told Joe or anybody really, because that's how I roll. I wait till the last minute to tell everybody, if you know me at all. So when we talk about the monument, you know how there's that big empty space on the back, Joe, that we talked about?
Yeah.
We are going to have hashtag I Will Listen sandblasted into it. We worked with the company. We got a way to do it. So now that space at the bottom there,
very
that's
cool.
empty, it's going to say I Will Listen in big letters. So we're just going to slide it right in there. And coincidentally, it says that on the Team One Network bench in front of the monument as well. So, yeah.
So, hey, we're talking about this monument thing, and we all know what it is. I think anybody who knows First Help knows what we're talking about here. But just pause for a moment and kind of tell us about this monument. I've got it up here on the screen. What is this? How did it come to be? And I mean, there's so much to First Help. Let's just, what is this thing?
Okay. So first of all, on your back left, you're going to see 3 panels. Those panels are solid granite panels that have about 80, 85 names etched on them. And those are the names of first responders and military veterans lost to suicide. So as you know, we have memorials around the country for line of duty deaths for all professions, but this is specific to first responders and military veterans. There will be 23 panels total. They will go around the edge on that lip that you see of the monument, and they will all have names on them. At the bottom of those panels, you can see a little plaque, and those are donor plaques for whatever donor, such as the Gary Sinise Foundation, Motorola Solutions Foundation. Some of the families donated those panels to help with the park. So those are donor plaques. And as you come forward, you'll see a pedestal in the front, and that pedestal is a tribute to the people in Texas who helped us bring this monument to Texas. Because when we started this back in 2020, and it was a smaller idea, we approached many different states and senators, and a lot of them said, no, can't do it. No, it's suicide, not interested. And then COVID hit, so we really lost momentum. But Texas, the minute we talked to some friends in Texas, they said, yeah, we'll do it. And they put us in touch with everybody down there, senators and whatnot, to get it done. Parks Department. So that pedestal tells you the names of the key people, as well as the story of how we got there. Then on each side, you'll see a granite bench. One bench, it was donated by Team One Network. The other was donated by the Quell Foundation. Team One has been a great friend and partner to us for many, many years. The Quell Foundation has also been a great friend and partner to us, and they do a lot of mental health, and they have a first responder program. So they both stepped up and said, hey, we'd like to donate something for this. And so there's those benches. And it's really nice because the way they're angled, you can sit and reflect on the monument. So the monument itself, I saved for last because it's you have to see it in person. It's absolutely stunning. It's on the lake, Lake Ray Hubbard in Rockwall, Texas. And the Parks Department, the people of Rockwall have just been so amazing and welcoming and generous in helping us get this done. I mean, the story of us getting there could just take me over an hour to tell you, and just everything from donating the sod, the time, the labor, everybody. I actually got a funny little text from the Parks Department. Travis, he's the director of the Parks Department. He said it feels so weird not texting you every day, because they would text me pictures every day, and they were out there, 24 hours a day getting this ready for us, which was just amazing. The grassroots part of this park. So the monument itself is black granite. It's huge. I think it's like 12 by 10, and it's on the front. You'll see there's 6 figures on it. There's dispatch, corrections, police, EMS, fire, and military. So those are all people that we know personally through our organization. They've asked not to be tagged. They said it's not about them. They just want to be representing their organizations, which is a really cool concept too. And that goes to the core of our organization as well. But anyways, Sharonda Calderon Young, she designed the front. Her husband, Omar, was lost to suicide. He was a Dallas County sheriff's officer, and she designed this so that they were not looking at you. They're looking away. So that we couldn't see who they were, so they represent their profession, but also because she felt that in the days before she lost her husband, he wouldn't look her in the eye, and she felt like he was always trying to hide his pain. So this shows first responders hiding their pain. The plaque that you see on the front of the monument has the names and the duty and city and state of the people that are depicted on the front. On the back of the monument, which isn't shown here, is obviously our logo. There is a quote there by me which says, suicide should be pursued as relentlessly as any other killer, publicly, courageously, and with unabating courage. So I can't believe I can't even remember my own quote. And then it tells the story of First Help and the key people involved in creating this monument at First Help, as well as Lakeview Video, who helped us design it. So I guess that's it in a nutshell. It's just a super, absolutely gorgeous, stunning monument. We've got a flagpole there with the American flag, and every day there's going to be a different flag there, like a first responder flag, a military flag. We have a guy, I call him the flag guy. His name is John Fick down in Texas, who lives nearby, and he brings the flag up. And so we're going to finish building out with 23, the other 20 panels going in. We've got names etched on 5 panels so far. We've filled 5 panels. We will fill those 23 in no time. And we're going to continue to have our events there every year, and that's it. So it was tremendous. It was, September 21st, we unveiled it. We had, I think, over 300 family members. It was crazy. It was amazing. It was gorgeous. It was beautiful. It was hot as anything. But it was just so special because this was a gift we could finally give to the families. It was one of those things we promised a long time ago, 4 years ago, and we couldn't deliver because of COVID and fundraising and all this other stuff. And we couldn't find a location, and being able to have a place for them to go to honor their loved ones where there's no shame, no guilt. They're not sharing the space with something else. They're not competing. It's just about them was, it was spectacular. Sorry, I talk a lot. Billy, what do you got to say, man? You're just,
Good.
You're just so happy you don't have to talk.
I'm just listening. Like I said, that Todd asked me at last minute to do this, so I have some questions from Todd that he sent me, and he wants to know, what got you started down this path, what started First Help, and then also what have you learned from it along your path?
Oh gosh, that's a complicated question. Okay, so the easy one first is, how did I get started? So hands up, don't shoot, Michael Brown. My husband's a police officer. My kids were little, came home from school one day crying, said somebody at school said pop kills people for no reason. Then I went to use my police department debit card at CVS, and the woman there had something to say about my husband and his profession. So I got really mad. And I belonged to a police wives group. It was one of the few that I didn't get kicked out of for having a big mouth. And I wanted to do something for those police wives because I felt like somebody should just do something to make them feel better about their spouses and their profession. So I wrote a book called Hearts Beneath the Badge, and it was just about good things law enforcement does. I interviewed some officers around the country, wrote their stories, what their favorite ice cream was, stuff like that, just to kind of humanize them. And while doing that, in the back of the book, I put a list of resources, mental health resources for law enforcement. And when I did that, as I started looking into this, I found that there was all this trauma going on. There was this anecdotal information about suicide that was collected every 3 or 4 years. And that wasn't anecdotal. It was actual data, but the anecdotal stuff came from it, saying, you know, it's this, it's an epidemic, it's that. And there was nothing really to show or to prove any of those statements. And then I found that, you know, officers were in need of mental help and they couldn't find any. And I'd say, what are you talking about? There's this organization, or there's this hotline, or there's this. And if I can find it, why can't you find it? Why are you looking through the yellow pages at the 11th hour when you're desperate? So I then partnered up with one of those friends, one of the officers in the books, Jeff McGill. And Jeff and I wrote a second book called The Price They Pay, and it was about the cumulative trauma. So, and then things just spiraled from there. Then Jeff and Steve and I said, Steve Huff and Jeff McGill were partners down in Texas. Steve got shot once in the face and twice in the leg, had a lot of trauma. And the three of us said, hey, let's form an organization. Let's, do this thing where we raise awareness. So we started to raise awareness. Jeff said we should put a page up like Officer Down Memorial that has the names and faces of the officers who died by suicide. So I bought a book on coding and built a website. So, and this was back in 2016. So that's how it all started. And it just snowballed. We didn't intend for any of this to become what it was. Our intent was to just raise some awareness, raise the red flag, and have someone else, someone bigger and better, someone with more money, more power, take this and say, we're going to fix this and we're going to support all these families. We're going to do all this stuff. And here we are, 8, 9 years later, and that didn't happen. So we just kind of filled this void. And, my son said to me one day, he's like, Mom, why couldn't you have invented Post-its? So at least you'd be making money. Why are you doing this? So, we've been on the Dr. Phil show. We've rung the bell at the stock exchange. We've had meetings with Merrick Garland in his office. We've been invited and we've been part of these larger discussions. We've done a lot of really important stuff behind the scenes. And that's the short story of how we got there. It really was not intentional. It was just kind of this weird thing that just happened. And I'm glad it did because of everything that we've been able to accomplish and we've been able to help other people accomplish. Now, what I've learned from it. So I guess I'm going to have to put on my Joe Willis tactful hat. So what I learned, and I'll be honest with you, I was very naive going into this. I thought that we get into this nonprofit world, everybody's all kumbaya, helping each other. It is cutthroat in the nonprofit world. It's hard. It's a lot of work. I have a full-time job. We all had full-time jobs. We volunteer to do this. So trying to manage that as well as our lives was really hard because it wasn't as easy as I thought it was going to be. And I think we all realized that. So number one, anything that's meaningful and significant and that's really going to make change isn't easy because, sometimes you see those memes that say, stand up, for yourself, even if it means standing by yourself. There's this one person standing over here in red and everybody else is wearing black. That was kind of us. And that was really hard. So learning to be more tactful, learning to try to control my emotions more on a personal level. That was a lot of growth for me. On a professional level, I learned a lot about organizations and business and nonprofits and tax rules and fundraising and all this stuff. Then from a relationship standpoint, also kind of personal, is how many amazing people there are in the world that don't have a voice and all they need is somebody to kind of give them a little push and give them a stage. And then the things they can do with that are tremendous. that was really amazing to me. Just seeing people grow over the years and seeing them get strength from other people. That was huge. So if you do something, no matter how small it is, you're giving somebody else courage to take the next step. I don't know if that makes sense, but that was really big for me to see over the years, and getting a lot of thank you notes from people. And I have that same thanks to other people, such as people like Joe and Brian and Jeff and Steve, and people that have helped me along the way. So it's amazing what small platforms can do for people individually to help them grow. And then the other thing I learned too is who freaking cares? Seriously, do what you want. If it's important to you, who cares? I used to care, don't care anymore. If it's all I have to care about is it making me happy and someone else? And I'm making a lot of someone else's happy. And that's all that really matters. So at the end of the day, if you love something, if you're passionate about something, you can do it. Just get out there. You don't need qualifications. You don't need a degree. You don't need anything but your own heart. And I think that was what really made us stand out, is we all did this as a passion project. We didn't get paid. We were here. We had full-time jobs, and we did this because we wanted something. We wanted to make a change. And that really was something I wish I had known. I'm 57 now, so say maybe 40 years ago. I wish 40 years ago I knew now that all I had to do was stand up for a minute and somebody would prop me up and help push me forward. And then every step I took forward, I would bring somebody else with me. That was huge. So I don't know, is that enough of what I've learned? Is that good enough, Billy? I don't know. I'm just kind of going on and on. I learned a lot. And I don't regret a minute of it. People say, would you do it different? If I did it any different, we wouldn't have done what we've done. I mean, September 21st, I was like, who the hell? I said to my husband, I go, who do I think I am? I'm putting up a monument. I'm doing this thing. It's like, but I think that's the problem with people as a whole, is you don't think you can or should do something. And you should, and you can. Just do it. And you know what? If you don't succeed, just keep trying, or pick a different passion, something, find somebody. My big thing was I didn't know what the heck I was doing. So I picked people that knew what they were doing. I had people like Joe behind me, who's Mr. Leader, Mr. Training. He joined us really early on. I had friends like Brian texting me, messaging me. I had, a lot of people that were experts at what I wasn't, and they helped me tell me what I needed to know to get by, while they took care of the rest in the background. So people think that it's all, Karen Solomon, First Help. It's not. It's all these other people. Like if I was to stand up right now and you could see all these shadows of the people behind me that have stood behind me and helped me and taught me and helped me grow over the past 7 years, it's a tremendous amount of people. Obviously there's more core people but there's, you really have to surround yourself, that old adage, surround yourself with experts, is so true. Because when I started this, what did I know? I was just a cop's wife. Like I said, I got kicked out of groups, didn't know what a badge bunny was. And now here I am doing whatever it is I'm doing.
So
we're out of time. Thanks, Joe. Sorry,
time's up. That's it. We'll end on that note. So this all kind of started in 2017 at a particular event at ILEATA. And
I thought you were going to talk about
I'm going to give you the floor.
We'll
all stand up actually if you want here. But I do want to highlight the fact that Todd, who's not here, is taking over this year as the Master of Ceremonies for Emerson Hour. And it is a tremendous event and has really shed some light on some key things. But your presentation at Emerson Hour was a hallmark moment for so many of us, and kind of tie First Help and ILEATA together, because we all know there are some strong bonds there. So
yeah. So first, the cat urine thing is what I thought you were going to bring up. The certain event in 2017 when we got you a hotel room in Massachusetts and a cat had urined on your ironing board. So I thought that was the pivotal moment for us, Joe.
That was a defining moment in my time with First Help.
So ILEATA. So somehow I don't know how Coach got wind of whoever I was or whatever I was doing or trying to do. And he contacted me, and he was so lovely. And he invited me to ILEATA the first year I went. And of course, in my mouth, I can't stop. And I just kind of was talking about stuff and wanted to do stuff and, trying to convince people that this was the right thing to do, to talk about suicide and stuff. And then Brian Willis started talking to me. And then the next year I get this invitation to come to Emerson Hour. And here's what's really funny about Emerson Hour. I thought we couldn't have any cue cards or prompts or anything. I thought we had to go up there and speak for the 7 or 8 minutes off the cuff. So here I am freaking out. I've got 4 keywords in my head that I'm going to do. And all of a sudden I get there and I see other people going ahead of me, and they've got cards and paper. And I'm going, what in God's names? They're cheating. They're all cheating. So that was freaking me out even more. They're cheaters. So I was like, you kidding me? I've been practicing this. I was practicing this in my boardroom at work. I would get a different group of employees every couple of days and make them come in, and they'd leave the crying, because of my topic was suicide, So anyway, I thought I had it down pat, which I guess I did. I get in there, I see all these cheaters go before me, and I get up there.
Just to be clear, Brian, was that the year you spoke, or you spoke the next year, right?
I don't remember, but I only remember one person using notes. I know who you're talking about.
But Joe was just talking.
I referenced a definition. Like, I could not keep that definition in my head. So I wrote it down on a piece of paper so I would have it. So yes, I'm one of the cheaters.
But see, in my memory, everybody had cards but me, because I was just freaked out, but they probably didn't. Anyway, so I got up and I gave my little 7 or 8 minute thing about law enforcement suicide, because it's that question, what have you learned since the last time we met? And this was my 2nd year at ILEATA. So I said, what I've learned is, and I told stories about officers who died by suicide. I told what I learned about the stigma, and then it ended in a standing ovation, which I just figured everybody got that. But the more interesting thing here was that the year before, when I went to ILEATA, I wrote a story for, I was writing for all kinds of publications at the time just to get the word out. I couldn't believe the first year I got to ILEATA how amazing it was, because you have all these people who care so much about law enforcement gathering once a year to learn from each other, to teach each other. And they're so passionate about the physical and emotional safety of law enforcement. It just touched me. So that first visit, whether I was ever asked to speak at Emerson Hour or not, I was already loyal to ILEATA, because I was just like, wow, this is tremendous. This is what the world needs. This is what everybody needs. Every cop in the world should be here, because it was just that ILEATA is that special. So anyway, so I went the 2nd year, I did my Emerson Hour speech, got a standing ovation. And for me, it was, it wasn't about the standing ovation. For me, it's about reaching people, because then I've developed so many relationships through ILEATA, and it was about realizing how important that message was to people and what we could do with it. And ILEATA really helped launch us in a way that so many people came up to me afterwards and was like, what can we do? How can we help? So again, these long-term relationships that I've had with a lot of people at ILEATA because of that. And some of them came to the September event, and that's where we met Team One Network. And thanks to your relationship with them, Joe, and a lot of other people. So that was a really special event. And if I was to rank the top 5, other than being on Dr. Phil, ILEATA would definitely be up in the top 5, of experiences I've had since I've done this, getting invited to the White House and saying, sorry, I'm too busy. That's kind of a top 5 regret, when I was invited for a signing. And I was like, yeah, sorry, I can't take time off work. I'm busy. But ILEATA was definitely.
That actually happened.
It did happen.
Yeah, I remember the phone calls the days before that, or the day before that, because that's kind of the notice we had, really.
Yeah. And they're like, can you come to the White House, stand by President Biden for a signing of the Cops Counseling Act? And I'm like, nah, I'm saving my vacation time so I can go to ILEATA. Because I have to go on my vacation time, and I didn't want to take a day to go and then run into the warehouse, going through security. It was just a pain. It was a hassle.
So you've been back now to ILEATA at least 2 times that I can think of since then. Yeah. But First Help has been there in one way or another
every year.
And from what I understand, you're coming back this year.
Yeah, I'm gonna come this year because I miss everybody. And I miss everybody, but a few people miss me. So I figured I'll go see those few people. It's a fun trip, and I think it's really energizing. So I think one of the things I learned too, Billy, is that whole filling your cup. So my cup gets filled when sometimes I'll lay in bed and I'll just feel like stressing out, crying myself to sleep because I can't stand hearing about death anymore. And I'm like, well, I need a sign to get me, because I'm just wiped out. And the next day I'll get a really nice email, or I'll get something in the mail from a family, just a thank you note. And that fills your cup and it keeps you going, right? But it's like so short-lived. But ILEATA is one of those things that fills your cup in a way that you see all of these passionate people around you that are passionate about law enforcement and passionate about elevating law enforcement. And that will fill you for the whole year. So I haven't been in 2 years. So I really want to go this year because I miss it. I miss the people. I want to fill my cup. I want to see what's going on, all the latest and greatest stuff. Not that I can do anything with it, but it's just nice to know and to see what everybody's up to, because
I don't know.
people change so much. Go, Billy.
I don't know how you wait that long to go. Like, I'm already counting the days down to the next one.
Yeah, it was tough not going, but like I said, I have to do this on my personal vacation time. So it depends on what else is going on for First Help. So, this year at the dinner, the monument, and I was traveling back and forth to Texas for the past 4, they made me an honorary citizen of Texas, because I was there so much over the last 6 months. So I have to schedule, but next year my travel schedule is pretty light so far. And since ILEATA is early in the year, if I go, I'll have to turn down other stuff later in the year. So, because I'll eat through my vacation.
What was really cool was sorry if I interrupted you, Brian, you may have been.
No, go ahead.
Was in Texas. So, we had the memorial unveiling, and that was truly, Brian was there. It was truly one of those really powerful, magnificent moments. Like the families and the media and the politicians and the first responders, everybody banding together in this really powerful event. But we also had the annual First Help dinner, and it was a little bit more casual this year. It wasn't the gala type thing that we've done in the past, which honestly was kind of nice. I didn't wear a tie.
Maybe next year's event's going to be so cool, but go ahead.
Okay. But from the ILEATA perspective, what I loved was there was no less than 15 ILEATA members that came from all over the country to be there. You had Steve Stevens, the former president of the IACP there, but you had
Kim Schlau
came down, Brian, Todd drove. I mean, it was like just everywhere you looked. And I mean, not to mention, Jeff McGill being a member. I felt a true, and John Meyer actually from Team One Network was there, and he's also an ILEATA member. This true kindred friendship between organizations that is supporting one another. It was just really cool to see.
Yeah, you're gonna make me start crying thinking about it, because I didn't get to spend any time with anybody because I just is so busy. I forgot Brian was even there until he texted me the next day that he was still there. No, I'm just kidding. He was still there, but that's beside the point.
You're being fooled in a whole bunch of different ways. I don't know how you do that. Every time I see you, somebody pulling you this way or that way.
It's awful. My son even said to me, he said, Mom, I don't know how you do it. He goes, you can't even walk through the lobby without everybody talking to you. I said, I know, honey. And he gets like frustrated because he's like, but I came to visit with you. I'm like, buddy, I told you, you can't visit. I can't visit with anybody because, I only see these families once a year, or I only see them once ever at these events. And they're, for better or for worse, I'm the representative, right? And that's, they want to thank somebody. So they thank me and I pass those thanks on, or they want to just be, or I want to thank them. So I make it a point of studying who's coming in, what time they're coming in. So when they get there, we know who they are. So they get recognized. So I'll say, oh, hey, here's Joe Willis. Joe, how are you? And people are like, how'd you know that was Joe? I'm like, oh, hello. It says right here, Joe's coming at 12 o'clock. It's 12 o'clock. That's got to be Joe. But, it's that we work really hard to create a family. And when I'm there, I want to make sure that we keep that family together, that I make sure I greet every single person there, whether I want to or not. So I can't spend time with Brian or Joe, even if I want to, because maybe that's the only time I see them a year too, but that's not what that weekend about. That weekend's about the families. But anyway, back to the ILEATA piece. Yeah, I get overwhelmed when people show up, because when I realize the impact that we've all made, we being, Brian, you were on the board, Joe, we consider you one of the founders because of the cat urine episode of 2017.
That was the sympathy for the cat urine thing. They were like, okay, fine, you're a founder if you, after this.
But just seeing the people and those connections we've made over the years, and that it's still that important for them to be there, and Steve Stevens, I saw him a couple of times in passing, and I never see him. But yeah, like I did it. And Kim, when Kim told me she was coming, I started crying, because it's such, what we do is so important to so many people. And I love that feeling. My son, we were at an event last December for first responders. And he said, we were actually at the Gary Sinise Foundation Snowball Express. They had the first year ever for first responders. So we were invited and we went, and we were walking through, and it was just amazing and tremendous. And it was great to see some of our families there. And my son said, Mom, seriously, are you doing this because you like doing it, or because it makes you famous? And I said, honey, I'd be a liar. Part of me, it's because, yes, that feels fantastic. Having somebody know your name, going to the bar cheers where everybody knows your name, that feels good. But what feels even better is it's 50-50, maybe 75-25. The 75 being how you're making everybody feel, that makes you feel good too. So that's a huge thing. And, I think sometimes we mistake narcissism or ego for that high of making others feel good. There is nothing like that. Nothing. You can all know my name, give me a standing ovation, ILEATA, whatever, but that pales in comparison to the feeling of someone else feeling so good, someone else feeling healed. Someone came to me and they said, you gave us our mom back because you honored our dad. That's what somebody said to me this weekend and this year. And I'm going to carry that with me forever, because that is the kind of high that you want to get out of life. It's knowing that you gave somebody such a tremendous gift that it's going to change their life.
Yeah.
How do you stay so positive and upbeat when you're dealing with such a sad topic?
My kids made me take a test, whether or not I was a sociopath or a psychopath. It was one of those dark personality tests to see if that was it. And maybe I just have no feelings whatsoever. And I'm not going to tell you the results, but I don't know. And it's funny because I think that, and this is going to sound so hokey, but I think that we're all, so I've had suicide attempts, and when the last one, I should definitely be dead. But I'm not, obviously. And I always wondered, why me? Why was I saved? And I think at some point in your life, you figure out why you're here, and you land where you're supposed to be. And I think that you're conditioned for it, for whatever it is. So I can listen to hundreds and hundreds of stories and details, and people can send me pictures of their death scenes. And I can get up the next morning and check it out. And I don't know, maybe it's compartmentalizing, whatever it is, but that's okay, because what's more important to me isn't the gruesome stories. It's not the death. It's not their sadness. It's how I can make that better. And I just think that I'm just kind of a wacky person to begin with. I don't take anything seriously. My mother used to get mad at me all the time and say, Karen Lynn, not everything's a joke. I'm like, well, Mom, it kind of is, I mean, you can turn anything into a joke. So I don't know, Brian. I think this is just, at the risk of sounding, like an egomaniac, I think this is just something, whether it had been law enforcement, whatever it was, it's just something that my mind can process in a way that doesn't hurt me, and not to say that I don't, because I do get compassion fatigue, and I know what I need to do, and I know who I need to talk to, and I know how to fix it. And I know when I need a break. So maybe that's part of it too, is my self-awareness of my own mental health.
It's good to have that self-awareness.
That was a hard question, Brian.
Well, I wanted to know.
I don't know.
Probably had that question.
Now, I'm high on cat urine. I'm just going to have that stuck in my head. I don't know what. See?
You, I
And
think,
they're
are
gonna
probably
ILEETA's gonna
the.
be like, yeah, she's not. Don't let her come in. Don't.
I think you're the only ILEATA person ever. I could be wrong, but to be on Dr. Phil. Tell us about that experience.
That was a blast. What happened? I don't even know. Again, Dr. Phil's producers, these weird things happen, contact us and they go, hey, do you want to be on Dr. Phil and talk about your mission? I'm like, yeah, okay. And most of the time I think I'm being punked. Like I thought when I was going to the White House, I thought I was being punked. But it turned out it was legit. So I said, can I bring some families? Can I bring some people? So, Tommy Shevlin from New York, he was an officer who tried suicide, attempted suicide, but now he does a lot of stuff. For suicide prevention in New York. So I asked, can we bring Tommy? As a matter of fact, we did live PD as well. But Tommy and we did that with, what's his name? Tommy Morris. Who's the guy that runs live PD podcast? We did that. And we also did SWAT, the TV show SWAT. They contacted us and asked us to help them with their suicide episode. So we went back and forth with them. But Dr. Phil was cool. And he is the nicest guy. Boatloads of makeup. And it's funny because, they give you a dressing room and I was in one dressing room with my son and then the families were in the dressing room next to me and they had this makeup person come in. They did all my hair, makeup forever. And I don't wear makeup. So I drank my coffee, I put it down and came back and I said, that is disgusting. Who got their lipstick on my coffee cup? And my son was like, Mom, that was you. I'm like, oh my God, that's just gross. Cause they just take you, just that whole TV thing. But it was cool because he was really, really interested in the topic, and so was his staff, and they followed up with us, a few times. So that was it was neat. It was different, and it was really interesting to be on set and kind of see the whole behind the scenes stuff. That was interesting. And what I didn't know is Dr. Phil is not taped, so you get one shot at it. And so whatever you're saying, that's it. And I didn't realize that until I got there, and I was like, oh my God, talk about the pressure. That's it. There's no taping. It's just you go straight through and that's it. But that was nice because that brought a lot of awareness again. But that was right before COVID. So it didn't air when it was supposed to. It aired like 6 months later. So that was cool. But it was really cool. That was a cool experience.
Sounds cool.
Yeah.
Billy, do you have something?
I was just going to ask. So one of my really good friends and coworkers who was a military veteran, we had him actually commit suicide right after work one night a few years ago, and the same story came across the whole time. Nobody saw it coming.
Mm-hmm.
So in your experience with all of this, as a coworker, as a supervisor, what do you say? Talking to these families, is there like a secret flag that comes up that we're all missing? Is there something we can do? And then the other thing is how can we help those families?
Okay, so that is the hardest question that people ask, and there's no answer because every single suicide is different. So if you go to the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, they have red flags. Has their behavior changed? We had one officer who emptied his bank account, his retirement account, bought a boat, took his family on vacation, did all this amazing stuff with them, and then he took his life because that was his final farewell. Every single one is different, but you can look for the signs of depression, giving away personal items, things like that. One of the things I use when I do give talks is, if your coworker comes in every day wearing a plaid shirt and then the next day he's wearing polka dot shirt, what the heck? Check and see what's going on because you know them better than anything else. If their dog dies and their dog is the only thing that they have in the world, that could be the last straw. So many of these suicides, there was kind of a last straw, but nobody saw it until after the fact. Then others were just out of the blue. Others were, we had officers who their family was taking them to get help and they didn't want to get help. They didn't want to get help and would take their lives as they're walking out the door to get help because they're so against it. So there's so many different scenarios, sadly, but, look at financial issues, like I said, recent loss of a job, any sort of depression, things like that. It's all those things that are on the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. And the problem is, Billy, that we're never going to save everybody. Even if we see all the signs, you still may not be able to stop it. There's, all these studies, there's all these talks about, maybe if you hide, one person was at a talk at SHOT Show was saying how they did this study where there was one family who her husband was suicidal. So when he was off duty, she would put his gun in a bucket and freeze the bucket. So when he went to go get it, he can't get the gun. So that moment where he doesn't have access to a firearm or something is what he needed to distract himself long enough to get help. So I mean, I could go on and on and on for hours about the different instances. So there's no simple answer to your question. There's just none. And so many people say we didn't see it coming. But how many of us are actually looking every day at the person sitting next to us going, I wonder if they're suicidal. I wonder if they're depressed. I wonder if they're sad. So I hate that I don't have an answer to that question, because after all these years, I feel like I should, and I don't, and I don't believe anybody does. But all I can recommend is that you learn about the warning signs that are put out there by those professional organizations, the AAS, the AFSP, whatever you want to look at, Mission 22, they put out lists. So that's one thing, you know, and the thing too is no one should ever feel like it was their fault. It's not. As someone who's attempted, it was me. It was my mind. Your mind, the hole that your mind goes into, nobody may be able to reach you. I can't explain it. It's just, unless you've been there, the mind is so unbelievably powerful, and it would convince you of anything if you let it. So you are not to blame. You cannot control anybody else. There's no guilt. There's no shame. Well, there is guilt, but there shouldn't be. There should never be shame on this, because you just simply may not be able to stop them all, even if you see every sign in the world, because you can't be with them 24/7 either. So that's a hard question. And honestly, I hate being asked that question, because there's no good answer to it, you know, and in my mind anyway. I mean, maybe somebody has a really good answer they can give me and I can use it from now on, but I don't have one for that. And the only thing I can say though, is after the suicide, you know, one of the things we do, we send out care packages to the families. We have college scholarships. We have a Christmas ornament contest where we send Christmas ornaments to the families every year. One of our family members designs it. So we treat them as if any other death. So cancer, line of duty, car accident, whatever it is, do not treat the families different. That's the biggest thing you can do to help them. You know, bring them a meal train, mow their lawn, do whatever that is, honor the loved one. Do not be angry at the family. Do not blame the family. So, you know, you can send them to us. We'll find them resources. The One Tribe Foundation out of Texas, they do an amazing job. The Gary Sinise Foundation. There's so many foundations out there now. They're doing tremendous things for the survivors, and at no cost to the survivors. They can go on these retreats. They can get healing. But the biggest thing I would say is, don't just treat it as if you would any other death. Don't be afraid to talk about it. Don't be afraid to talk to them. Don't be afraid to talk about their loved one, and watch the family, because those families are more susceptible. So many of ours have attempted, their children have attempted. The boys especially, we've seen issues with the boys when they get into their teens, because that's when they do need their dads the most, and their dads aren't there. Again, I could talk about this for hours and the things that we've learned from the families, but again, that's the biggest thing. Treat it the same as you would any other death.
I know you hate getting asked that question, Karen, and I've seen it happen to you before, but Billy, I'm so glad you asked, really, because that was a phenomenal answer that hit so many aspects of this that, and, you know, having worked with you in the organization over the years, it's one of those things that we will never have the exact right answer. But the biggest takeaway I heard from everything you just said there, and I think we all kind of heard it, is be there and be present, treat them no differently, and don't blame anyone, yourself or the family, under any circumstance. And that's one of the things that agencies really struggle with. I know we're kind of getting down to the wire on time, but I'd like to ask you, in the beginning, when all of this first started, there was a lot of conversation about disparity and how agencies were handling things. And we have these horrendous stories of benefits being pulled immediately.
Yeah.
What have you seen over the last several years? Any changes, or what have you seen?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And oh God, I could talk about this for hours too. So there's been so many changes and so much forward movement, right? So different cities, different states, different jurisdictions, they do have benefits for suicide, post-traumatic stress. In some cities, some states, it depends. Everybody, there was another law that was just passed recently. We posted on social. I don't remember off the top of my head, but there are some cities and states now that you can get benefits for post-traumatic stress, suicide because of post-traumatic stress on the job. So locally, that's huge. There's been a one of the things that I've always said is, whether you like it or not, it's an off-duty death. You give them off-duty honors, give them off-duty benefits, whatever you would give to the cancer guy, or anybody else. Just because it's not line of duty doesn't mean they don't deserve something. They get off-duty. Federal government, as most people know, or maybe not, maybe I just think everybody knows, the Public Safety Officers Benefit Act was passed to include some suicides. The language is relatively strict. You have to have had a harrowing incident. There's very specific language in the law to qualify you to get a line, to have the federal government designate a suicide as a line of duty death. There's over 300 applications in now. I know some have been approved, not a lot. There's some preparing to be approved. But basically what it does is the federal government will look at if you can meet the criteria laid out in the law, they will declare it a line of duty death. You get the one-time death payout. And then that may or may not open doors to other organizations, because the federal government, just because they give you line of duty doesn't mean anybody else has to respect it. And if the state gives you line of duty doesn't mean the federal government has to respect it. So we kind of see, while we see forward progress, we also see a little bit of fracturing among the families. And you also have to have died on or before January 1st, 2019 to be eligible for that benefit. So you now have all these families from before that can't qualify. Then what we've also seen is the National Memorial in DC has recently announced that they will consider suicides that receive the PSOB designation, only those that receive the designation. And when they do, they will have to go through a separate application process. So the federal government says that if the job was one of the factors in their death, they would consider it line of duty, or they can consider it. The wall is saying it has to be if it's the factor. I'm sorry. The federal government says if it's a factor in their death, consider it. The wall is saying it has to be the factor. They've changed the language a little bit. So we now have this qualification where they can go on the wall in DC. So that's huge. It's a huge milestone. So we're going to see, how many people get through the PSOB, how many people get through to the wall. Fantastic stuff all around. You see more organizations opening their doors if they get the line of duty designation. So that's, it's a double-edged sword there, because you're saying if the suicide gets the federal benefit, the federal designation will consider you line of duty and will help you. But if you don't get it, we can't consider it and we won't help you. So that's like I said, a double-edged sword, but it's progress. And we can build on that progress over the years. But a death is a death, as far as I'm concerned, and as far as we are concerned and our wall is concerned. But again, more and more departments, again, this whole snowflake generation where they believe in feelings, not that I don't believe in feelings, but they're gonna elevate this even more. So we're going to continue to see progress over the years. So even though our progress is a bit restrictive right now, understandably so, we're going to keep building on that and hope and push for more for our families and for our officers.
What kind of, talk about progress, what kind of progress have you seen since you started First Help, agencies across the country adding more wellness and making things a little more easier for officers to reach out and ask for help?
So tough question, because there's tons more, and everybody, that's the, catchword, let's jump on the bandwagon. So you have this progress of perception of more services, but are those services really useful, or are they checkboxes? So, and I think that's a distinction, and I don't want to name any departments, but you have departments that say, here's all these resources, now here's what we're going to do, but they don't really implement it. It's just paper. It's just saying they're doing it. Then you have like the NYPD. If you go into any cruiser in the NYPD, guess what's on their keychain? Hotline for suicide. Every single keychain for every single car at the NYPD. The NYPD is rolling it out like madness. Whether or not it's effective and people take advantage of it, that's a different story. But we are seeing progress. We are seeing programs. Some departments are just fantastic at it. They're really walking the talk. You have chiefs that are on board and that rolls down. But then you have the chiefs that are doing it just because they have to or because they got a grant. And it's not as effective as those where their heart is in it and they're stepping up and they're really doing something. So Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
'Cause there's tons and tons and tons of new programs. It's amazing. And actually, there is, we've seen an increase of people looking for assistance. And after a suicide, when we first started this, it would take us months to get them. Like minutes, hours. Like people, in their cruiser, I'm on the scene. How can you guys help us? What can we do? So that's also amped up. That's huge. Just in the face of what we do, waiting 2 or 3 months to get a suicide reported to having it reported within minutes or hours, so I think that speaks to the changes as well. But then again, people trust us because we're not, posting their faces and names and all their problems out on social media. But it's been, progress has been fantastic, and then it's going to keep going. And once we see more of these applications approved through PSOB, and once we start seeing those names on the wall in DC, that's going to raise the bar even more. It's going to show people they can talk about it. And this whole concern people have about you're honoring suicide, you're making it glamorous. No, we're not. We are honoring what the wall we have in Texas is called the wall of service. We are honoring their service. We don't want them on the wall. We don't want any more suicides, but if they are going to die by suicide, we are going to respect what they did for us in their lives, period. No questions, no judgment, no deadlines, no restriction.
Well, thanks for all you're doing.
Yeah.
Before we're winding down here, before I give you the final word, I just want to remind everybody out there, our ILEATA family, that just a couple more days left to get your instructor proposals in for the ILEATA conference next year. We have several, over 150, I think, Joe, is that right?
164.
164 right submitted so far. And I think October 31st, there will be 165, I'm sure.
At least one more.
At least one more. I won't mention any names.
Brian?
Yeah, that's me.
Writing yours a minute before midnight again.
It's tradition. I gotta stick with tradition. But December 10th, our articles for the ILEATA Journal are due, and if you haven't seen the last edition of the ILEATA Journal, it's one of the biggest ones I think we've had since we've started ILEATA. So check that out. There's some wonderful, fantastic, meaningful articles in there. And First Help, check out their website. A lot of great resources, talks about those that have died by suicide, and great resource, great organization. There's some areas in there where you can submit an officer if you know somebody that has died by suicide, and hopefully no more.
Yeah, thank you, Joe. I mean, Brian, just for the audience. So what's super important to us is this aggregate data. Submit, if you know anyone who died by suicide any year, any duty status, submit it to us. 100% confidential. We don't share anything unless the family approves it. We don't reach out to the families unless they reach out to us. And if they do, we'll get them that care package. We'll get them some information. We'll get them other resources. We'll get them the memorial blanket with their loved one's name embroidered on it. But it's super important that we understand, and we continue to understand, especially when people like Congress looks at our number and wants to say, hey, how come First Help is saying this many suicides and you're telling me this isn't a problem? So, or look, it's going down. We want to be as accurate as we can. So submit. We're not going to do anything crazy with the information.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We've got about 1 minute left. I'll give you the last word, Karen. Anything that you want to get out to our ILEATA members and those non-members that are watching?
That was my last word. I just said
Well,
submit.
You got a second last word.
Submit. Yeah, no. And thank you for all of the friendship and support that ILEATA has given me over the years in our organization, especially being somebody who's not a trainer, not in law enforcement, just somebody who really cares about your well-being. And that said, take care of yourself, take care of the people around you. I will listen. Joe will listen. Brian will listen. Billy will listen. Just if you have something to say, don't be ashamed. You're still, at the end of the day, you're a human being, and you've got feelings, and you've got to take care of them.
Karen, thank you for being such a wonderful guest tonight. And you gave a lot of great information out there for the entire membership of ILEATA. And Joe, Billy, thank you for your insightful questions.
Thank Todd
Wonderful.
for Billy's insightful question.
Yeah.
Wonderful questions and some great answers. And I know Karen likes to talk, and we can spend it another hour on here and have some great conversations, but want to be mindful of everybody's time. So thank you. Appreciate that.
Hey, good
Billy?
night, everybody.
Good night. Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
Thank y'all.